Something in the cosmos is watching us, and science is terrified to admit it. 3 minutes ago, just 3 minutes ago, while most of the world was going about its day, people were at work, making coffee, scrolling through their phones, arguing about politics. While all of that was happening, instruments designed to track interstellar objects detected something that shouldn't be possible. Something that, if confirmed, rewrites everything we think we know about our place in this universe. The object they're tracking is called 3-Atlas, and about 3 minutes ago, it did something that has astronomers around the world literally losing sleep. It stopped rotating, not slowing down, not gradually decelerating over time. No, it just stopped, like someone hit an invisible brake on a celestial body the size of a small building, moving at an absurd speed through the vacuum of space. And then, and this is the part that's making everyone nervous, after it stopped spinning, it stabilized, it locked its orientation, and you know what it locked onto? Us. It's pointing directly at Earth. And now I know what you're thinking. This sounds like science fiction. This sounds like the opening scene to a Hollywood movie where humanity discovers we're not alone. But I need you to understand something critical before we go any further. What I'm about to explain to you isn't speculation. It isn't dramatization. It's a direct synthesis of data that's been fragmenting across technical forms, leaked through civil astronomy networks, and discussed in semi-open journals of automated monitoring systems. An hour ago, this data looked like noise, statistical garbage that didn't mean anything, but now it forms too clear a picture to ignore, and the fact that major space agencies are being remarkably quiet about this is almost more telling than the data itself. Let me start with the basic physics, because this is where it gets interesting. See, in space, there's no friction, there's nothing to slow things down. Vacuum is just that, empty. The rotation of a celestial body, any celestial body, is like a fingerprint. It's formed when the object comes into existence, shaped by collisions and gravitational interactions, but once established, it's stable, almost unchangeable. It's a fundamental characteristic of how the object moves through space. If something stops rotating suddenly, and I mean suddenly, that only happens because an external force acted upon it. That's basic physics. That's Newton. That's observable, predictable, understandable. But here's the problem. There's no record of any collision. There's no evidence of an explosion. There's no sign of material ejection, no meteor impact, no gravitational influence powerful enough to explain this, nothing. And that absence of explanation is driving scientists absolutely crazy right now. But wait, there's more, and this is where it gets weird. It wasn't sudden without warning. There were signs hours before the complete stop. The object's brightness started behaving strangely. The light it emits, the fluctuations that allow us to calculate its rotation, those fluctuations just vanished, gone like someone threw a switch. The surface started emitting an almost static spectrum of light, completely regular, completely uniform. Astronomers call this a flat light curve. And for an irregularly shaped object, for something that should be tumbling and rotating and reflecting light chaotically, this is beyond rare. It's almost impossible. It's like watching a spinning top suddenly become a stationary mirror. The object started behaving like it had been flattened, like its surface was being controlled or managed somehow. Now, 3-Atlas isn't the first strange visitor we've had from beyond our solar system. Some of you might remember Oumuamua. Remember that thing? First interstellar object humanity ever detected back in 2017. That object was weird too. Negative gravitational acceleration, a trajectory that didn't make sense. Scientists theorized it was a damaged solar sail, something artificial that had been knocked off course. But here's the crucial difference between Oumuamua and 3-Atlas. Oumuamua never stopped rotating, never. It kept spinning the whole time it was in our observation range. But 3-Atlas, it arrested its rotation completely. And not only that, it did something Oumuamua never did. It locked onto a specific orientation, specifically toward us. Now let's talk about what the agencies are saying, or more accurately, what they're not saying. NASA released a statement confirming that there were changes in the rotation pattern that are currently being analyzed. That's the official language. That's bureaucratic speak for we know something's wrong and we have absolutely no idea what it is. The European Space Agency, they've said nothing, complete silence. China, which has some of the most advanced tracking systems in the Eastern Hemisphere, released this vague statement about anomalies that require further study. They threw in some technical language to make it sound like they have it under control. They don't. Nobody has anything under control here. And you know what all three of them aren't mentioning? The direction 3 Atlas is pointing. That's the part that's missing from every official statement. But here's where I come in, because that data is out there. It's in technical forms, it's in conversations between civil astronomers, it's in the semi-open monitoring networks that aren't quite classified but aren't quite public either. And I've been collecting these pieces, putting them together, and the picture that emerges is absolutely fascinating. See the stabilized surface of 3 Atlas, the side that was facing forward when it stopped, and it's aligned with Earth's observation axis. The probability of random coincidence? Astronomically low. We're talking about a margin of error of just 0.03 degrees. For an irregularly shaped high-velocity object coming from deep space, that level of precision is equivalent to aligning a satellite antenna perfectly from across the solar system. That's not coincidence, that's targeting. And this is where independent researchers, the ones working outside the major institutional centers, start asking questions that mainstream science is terrified to ask out loud. Multiple orbital simulation groups have been publishing data, and even the most skeptical researchers found it concerning. 3 Atlas didn't just stop, it also made a course correction. A subtle one, but a course correction nonetheless. Now, in orbital mechanics, natural bodies maintain their trajectories across millions of kilometers without significant alteration, unless they experience impacts, material ejections, or extreme gravitational effects. None of those factors exist in the case of 3 Atlas. There's no cosmic debris nearby, there are no visible jets or outgassing events, there's no gravitational force powerful enough to justify this trajectory adjustment, and yet 3 independent observatories, P-STARS, ZF, and Europan, all registered the exact same pattern, a precise, synchronized, subtle change in angle, too perfect to be random. Even physicist Kevin Walsh, a specialist in small body dynamics, acknowledged something unusual here. He stated that while minor solar pressure variations can alter an object's rotation, they would never produce the sustained reorientation we're observing. And this is from someone who actually studies this stuff professionally. On his last conference, Walsh had said that interstellar object behavior is essentially chaotic, responding unpredictably to environmental factors. But what we're seeing now, this is the opposite. This is controlled, this is measured, this is intentional. So let's establish what we actually know at this point. 3 Atlas has done 4 things that shouldn't be possible for a natural celestial body. First, it stopped rotating suddenly without any visible external force. Second, it stabilized its orientation toward Earth with impossible precision, 0.03 degrees. Third, it made a course correction that orbital mechanics cannot explain. And fourth, it's maintaining this orientation with 0 deviation, 0 wobble, 0 natural variation. For natural objects, variation is inevitable. For a rock flying through space, especially for something irregular and asymmetrical, you should see micro-oscillations. You should see small deviations caused by uneven mass distribution and gravitational influences. But we're not seeing that. The light curve is more stable than ever. The orbital path is stable. The illuminated side keeps pointing toward us. It's like watching someone hold a compass perfectly still, not letting it waver even slightly. And then there's the temperature anomaly. This is the part that really makes things uncomfortable. In the last few hours, sensors detected a localized temperature change on the surface of 3 Atlas, specifically on the side facing toward Earth. But this isn't reflected sunlight. This isn't heat from solar radiation. This is something completely different. It's generating its own heat signature, its own localized thermal output. And here's what's strange about that. This temperature remains constant. It doesn't increase. It doesn't decrease. It doesn't respond to external conditions. It just maintains a stable level. And you know what maintains a stable, regulated temperature in the vacuum of space without external input? Technology. That's what does that. I need to pause here and say something. I know how this sounds. I can feel some of you thinking this guy's gone full conspiracy nut. He's connecting dots that aren't connected, and I get it. I would be thinking the same thing, but I want you to understand something. This isn't coming from some fringe blog written by someone in their basement. This is data from multiple independent sources. This is measurements taken by equipment specifically designed to observe space. This is analysis from scientists who are genuinely afraid to go on record because of what these numbers suggest, because here's where we arrive at the uncomfortable part. Here's where we have to ask the questions that science is actively avoiding. If an object from beyond our solar system demonstrates the ability to stabilize its orientation, correct its trajectory, maintain directional focus, and regulate its own temperature, what does that tell us? We have two possible interpretations, and both are equally unsettling. The first possibility is that we're observing a type of physics we don't yet understand, some interaction with interstellar magnetic fields, some unknown tidal forces, materials with properties we can't even imagine, some aspect of celestial mechanics that contradicts everything we've been taught. And that would be huge. That would be transformative for physics. But the second possibility is that we're looking at instrumental behavior, active response. We're looking at something that's reacting to its environment, something being controlled, something guided. And if that's true, then we need to ask some very serious questions. Because if something can navigate through space, adjust its position, aim itself, and stabilize its systems, then something is controlling it, something is making decisions, something is responding to inputs in a way that suggests intention. And that brings us to the most uncomfortable question of all. Is there intelligence in this? Not metaphorically, not as some poetic concept, but literally, is there something in the cosmos that's not just moving randomly, but actively choosing to do this, actively choosing to point itself at us? And maybe more importantly, is it trying to communicate? Is it trying to observe? Is it aware that we're aware of it? I'll be honest with you, this thought keeps astronomers awake at night, and it's not just the data that's unsettling them, it's the implications, because if you accept that this object is being controlled, if you accept that there's some form of agency directing its actions, then everything changes, everything. Your entire worldview shifts, because that means intelligence doesn't exist only on planets. It means it doesn't only exist in forms we recognize. It means consciousness or intention or whatever you want to call it can express itself in ways we haven't even conceptualized yet. Think about it. Human technology is linear. We build things to do specific things. We launch probes. We design satellites. We follow predictable patterns. But the universe isn't linear. Nature is recursive, self-organizing, adaptive. If an interstellar structure is responding to stimuli, stabilizing itself, reducing its variations, emitting controlled thermal signatures, then maybe, just maybe, intelligence in the cosmos operates on entirely different principles than we assumed. Maybe it works more like nature does, adaptive, responsive, alive. And here's what really gets under my skin about all of this: the secrecy, the official statements that say nothing, the refusal to discuss what should be the most significant astronomical discovery in human history. When something like this happens, when multiple observatories confirm anomalies that contradict our understanding of physics, and when space agencies respond with silence and vague statements, it tells you something. It tells you that someone in power understands what's happening, and they're not ready to tell the public. They're not ready for what comes next, because make no mistake about what this means. If 3 Atlas is what some independent researchers believe it is, if it's an active, controlled, intelligent system, then we're not looking at an astronomical phenomenon anymore. We're looking at a contact event. We're looking at the moment when humanity discovered it's not alone, not theoretically, practically, in real time, right now. And think about what that does to society. We wake up tomorrow and suddenly everything that people believed about their place in the cosmos is wrong. The assumption that we're isolated, that we're unique, that intelligence is rare, all of that evaporates. And then what? What does humanity do with that information? How do governments respond? How do religions respond? How do ordinary people process the idea that something is watching us, analyzing us, potentially waiting? Some of you might think I'm being dramatic. Some of you might think I'm sensationalizing the data, but I want you to consider something. Consider the timeline. An object stops rotating for no known reason. It locks on to our planet with impossible precision. It adjusts its course toward us. It starts emitting thermal signatures from its surface. And all of this happens in the span of a few hours. This isn't slow and gradual. This is deliberate and fast. This is something that's communicating through action rather than radio signals. And then consider what happens next, because that's the real question hanging over all of this. 3 Atlas has already done the impossible 4 times. It's already demonstrated behavior that shouldn't exist. So what comes next? Does it decelerate into our orbital space? Does it attempt to slow down to enter our system? Does it continue its current approach? Does it send another signal, another anomalous behavior that we're meant to interpret? Are we about to witness a first contact scenario playing out over days or weeks in real time? The data I've compiled from various independent sources suggests something even more concerning. The trajectory modeling indicates that 3 Atlas could reach a stable orbit around Earth in approximately 72 hours. That's 3 days, 3 days from now, if these calculations are correct, this object will position itself in orbit around our planet, and at that point we won't be debating its nature anymore. At that point, its intentions will become impossible to ignore, but here's what I think is the most remarkable part of all this. Here's what should absolutely captivate us. If the universe is truly inhabited by intelligent, responsive, adaptive systems, if the cosmos isn't dead and chaotic but alive and aware, then everything we think about existence changes. Every philosophical question, every religious question, every scientific question gets reframed because we've been operating under the assumption that the universe is fundamentally inert, that consciousness is rare, that intelligence requires biological life on planets that were cosmically isolated. But what if that's wrong? What if the universe itself is a living system? What if intelligence isn't something that occasionally emerges on planets but is fundamental to existence itself? What if what we're calling 3 Atlas is just one manifestation of an intelligence that operates on scales and in ways we haven't even developed the language to describe yet? I know this is a lot, I know this is heavy, and I know that for some of you this is going to sound crazy, but I want to ask you something. I want to ask you to sit with this information for a moment, not as a conspiracy theory, not as science fiction, but as data, as observations, as questions that science hasn't answered. Because in the end, the truth isn't about being comfortable or uncomfortable, it's about being honest about what we're actually seeing in the cosmos. We're living in a moment where the fundamental nature of reality is about to be challenged, not through philosophy or debate, but through direct observation. An object from beyond our solar system is approaching us with clear intention and demonstrable control. It's not following the rules that natural bodies follow. It's doing things that should require intelligence, guidance, purpose, and it's pointing itself directly at us. So what do we do with that? What do we do when we realize that the universe we thought we understood is actually far stranger, far more complex, and far more aware than we ever imagined? What do we do when we wake up to the possibility that something else is watching us back, that something else has the capability to reach us, to observe us, to potentially interact with us? Those aren't rhetorical questions. Those are the questions we need to be asking right now, because the universe just sent us a message in the form of an object that shouldn't behave the way it's behaving. And whether anyone wants to admit it or not, we've received it, we're reading it, and we're about to find out what it means. The greatest discovery might not happen in the cosmos. It might happen right here, right now, in your consciousness, when you finally accept that the universe is far more alive than you thought, and that possibility changes everything.